Intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Karoline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians. All of these lies that were never true.
Karoline Levitt and Kaitlin Collins have reignited their fiery rivalry once more. And this time, it erupted into one of the fiercest verbal showdowns ever to shake a White House press briefing. Collins looked determined to sabotage the Trump administration at every turn, tossing sparks of chaos whenever she could. But Karoline didn't flinch for a second. She stood sharp, steady, and laser-focused, striking back at Kaitlin's every move with precision and force. And the best part? Every scorching exchange is right here for you to witness. So brace yourself, because this clash is about to explode in ways you've never seen before.
Just on this, Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Community, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion, but they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. One, are you saying that he's wrong in that statement that he made then? And secondly, what would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
Kaitlin came charging in, swinging hard as she targeted Tulsi Gabbard's motives for dropping explosive evidence that could shake her idol, Barack Obama, to the core. The headlines were already blazing with Obama's name in all the wrong ways, and Kaitlin was desperate to drag attention somewhere else. Her strategy? Smear Tulsi, drag her through the mud, and shift the spotlight. But Gabbard wasn't caught off guard for even a second. She flipped the script in a single scorching move, torching the narrative and the man behind it. The result wasn't just a rebuttal, it was pure political fireworks that lit up the room.
First, I want to correct something that you stated, which was citing the Senate Intelligence Committee's report as being one and the same. I think you said the intelligence community. The Senate Intelligence Committee has a very different function than the Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
Kaitlin stepped into this clash armed with nothing more than a kitchen knife, but Tulsi Gabbard stormed in wielding a fierce double-edged sword that cut straight through Kaitlin's flimsy facade. It became painfully clear that Kaitlin didn't even understand the difference between the Senate Intelligence Committee and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Two completely separate powerhouses with distinct roles. She clumsily blurred them together like an amateur, and Tulsi schooled her in front of millions. The humiliation was so sharp, you could almost picture the egg dripping down Kaitlin's face as she scrambled to cover her mistake. And just when she thought the flames might cool down, Tulsi handed her straight over to Karoline Leavitt for another searing round of roasting. This next act is about to be delicious.
The intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Karoline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians. All of these lies that were never true.
The undisputed queen of verbal takedowns struck again, and this time her target was Kaitlin Collins. Kaitlin tried to twist Marco Rubio's words into something they were never meant to be, claiming that Rubio, once a critic turned Trump ally, had admitted there was solid proof Russia had infiltrated America to spread division. But here's the jaw-dropping truth. Rubio never said there was evidence of collusion between Russia and Trump. That lie was cooked up in the backrooms of the Democratic machine and spoon-fed to the public by their loyal media allies. Karoline wasn't letting that deceit slide. She came armed with proof, context, and a wrecking ball that demolished the falsehood live and unfiltered. In that moment, the media's carefully polished narrative collapsed on air. Karoline wasn't just defending, she was setting the pace, calling out the bluffs, and making every strike sting. And this was only the beginning.
He also said at that time, we discovered deeply troubling actions taken by the FBI under Comey, particularly their acceptance and willingness to rely on the Steele dossier without verifying its methodology or sourcing. The Steele dossier that many outlets in this room ran as the gospel truth, and it was cooked up and paid for by the Clinton campaign.
That's the kind of fearless firepower you don't witness every day. And Karoline Leavitt deserves every ounce of credit for it. She stood firm, unapologetic, and scorched every media outlet in that press room that once clung to the Steele dossier like it was carved in sacred stone. No fact-checking, no genuine investigation, just raw partisan hysteria dressed up as journalism. I remember when the Steele dossier dominated every airwave. Every political panel, every late-night show treated it like a golden ticket to spin endless fantasies about Trump-Russia collusion. They didn't just report it. They milked it dry, crafting dramatic storylines as if it were the next season of Game of Thrones. But when the smoke cleared and the truth emerged, that it was nothing more than unverified gossip and political fan fiction, the media stood humiliated. And Karoline made certain they wouldn't just remember it. She made sure they would feel the sting of it.
As for your second question, Kaitlin, I think who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working.
Karoline Leavitt unleashed yet another blistering smackdown, further cementing her reputation as one of the boldest and most unshakable press secretaries ever to stand at the White House podium. This time, CNN's Kaitlin Collins tried to stir the pot by asking if Tulsi Gabbard's release of damning evidence against Barack Obama was just a calculated ploy to win back President Trump's favor. But Karoline wasn't buying a shred of it. She crushed that narrative instantly, making it crystal clear that Tulsi never suggested, hinted, or implied such a motive. Karoline called it exactly what it was, a desperate fabrication by the left, designed to sow division inside Trump's circle. As the hard facts piled up, Kaitlin's composure cracked wide open. You could see the frustration etched on her face as Karoline calmly dismantled her storyline in front of every camera in the room. What followed was one of the most tense and electrifying exchanges ever witnessed within the White House walls.
I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to. And that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president.
Karoline Leavitt drove the final nail into the coffin and buried Kaitlin Collins right there in the briefing room. Her takedown was so sharp, so flawless, it left no room for spin or escape. Karoline exposed what so many already knew. The left is so obsessed with destroying Trump that they'll invent lies, splice videos, and bend reality itself to fit their agenda. The so-called evidence Kaitlin clung to was nothing more than a heavily edited 18-second clip of Tulsi Gabbard speaking about America's dealings in Iran. A journalist dangled that snippet in front of Trump, hoping for drama. But Trump, with his trademark candor, simply noted that the clip didn't fully reflect what Gabbard had actually said. That was it. No outrage. No rejection. Yet the anti-Trump media twisted it into a circus, falsely screaming that Trump had thrown Gabbard under the bus. Karoline shredded that sham on the spot, ripping the mask off the media's manipulation and leaving Kaitlin cornered, exposed, and scrambling under the harsh glare of the cameras.
You laid out that the documents revealed that the Obama administration did not publish a December 2016 presidential daily briefing that demonstrated that Russia did not steal the election. Trump was receiving these briefings at the time because he was president-elect. Are you of the view that that information was kept out of the briefing because then President-elect Donald Trump would have seen it?
I don't have any documents that speak to exactly what the new guidance was that was given as the reason for pulling that document, which, by the way, still has never been published until we released it last week, Friday. One could assume that they didn't want President Trump to see a document that came from the intelligence community that would contradict the Russia hoax narrative that began through the Hillary Clinton campaign with the Steele dossier.
Democrats love to parade around draped in moral superiority, but peel back the curtain and it's nothing but smoke and mirrors. They accuse Trump of playing dirty, yet their own schemes make his moves look like child's play. Here's the cold, undeniable truth. They knew the Russian collusion story was a hoax from day one. They had the intelligence briefings, the classified reports, the receipts, and still Barack Obama and Joe Biden chose to bury it rather than set the record straight. Instead, they leaned into the lie, pushing the Steele dossier like it was sacred scripture, using it to smear Trump and manipulate public opinion. But now, with the mask slipping, their true faces are revealed. Not defenders of democracy, but master architects of deception. The very people who preach truth and transparency were the ones selling fiction. Karoline Leavitt was absolutely right to call it out. The American people deserve honesty, not political theater. And now the curtain is crashing down on the left's biggest performance yet.
The president said yesterday that Obama committed treason. Do you or the White House believe that the Supreme Court's immunity decision protects Obama from prosecution?
Look, I can speak to the president's feelings on this matter. He spoke to all of you yesterday in the Oval Office, but I also spoke to him about this morning. And he wants to see all those who perpetuated this fraud against our country, who betrayed our country and the Constitution, to be thoroughly investigated and held accountable. And it's been 10 years of this. And I would just add, based on everything the director has said and declassified, all of you in this room should go through it and take a look at this report and review the intelligence, because unfortunately that hasn't happened. And many of the people who perpetuated this hoax, Clapper, Andy McCabe, James Comey, and many others, have been hired by major networks in this room to go on television and continue to spew these lies, knowing that they are lies.
I firmly believe that every single person who dragged this nation into the dark pit of the Russian collusion hoax must face accountability. No exceptions. How that reckoning comes, whether through legal battles, political consequences, or other means, is a debate for another day, but one thing is certain. The damage was real, and the deception was deliberate. Could Barack Obama himself face prosecution? That's a question only the courts, maybe even the Supreme Court, can answer. What is beyond dispute is that his allies, many of whom Karoline Leavitt boldly named, played critical roles in orchestrating this colossal political fraud. They knowingly spread a false narrative, shattered public trust, and weaponized federal institutions against a sitting president. That cannot simply be brushed aside. The American people deserve justice, and the era of political elites escaping accountability must end now. This wasn't just politics as usual. It was sabotage in a suit and tie, and it must never be forgotten.
If you all recall, just flashback to 2016 and the years after, the entire Trump 1 presidency was embroiled in this scandal that was perpetuated by the Democrat Party. And you had major Democrat Party officials in this city, namely Adam Schiff, Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren, who went on television and told the American people, Donald Trump is an asset of Russia. It was a lie. They always knew it. Hillary Clinton herself said that President Trump would be a puppet for Putin. Senator Tim Kaine at the time called President Trump Vladimir Putin's defense lawyer. Adam Schiff stated, and one of the worst things a lawmaker can do is to tell the American people, I know something you don't know, it's just classified and I can't tell you. And that's what he said. I can tell you that the case is more than that. I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. And not enough people in this room, not enough journalists in this country pushed Adam Schiff to say, what are you talking about? What evidence do you have?
The legacy media didn't just fail to push back. They were part of the scheme, marching in lockstep with Democrats toward one goal: stop Donald Trump from ever running again. Objectivity vanished, integrity evaporated, and journalistic principles were tossed aside like yesterday's news. They swallowed any flimsy scrap of so-called evidence as long as it painted Trump in the darkest light. No hard questions, no verified sources, just clickbait dressed up as reporting. They didn't simply echo the lie. They amplified it, broadcast it, and sold it to the public as unshakable truth. And when the truth finally clawed its way to the surface, did they retract? Did they apologize? Not a chance. They just moved on, hoping the public would forget. And we won't. The division they fueled and the trust they shattered can't be erased. These weren't watchdogs. They were attack dogs, leashed and unleashed for political gain. Karoline Leavitt ripped the veil off a coordinated scheme powered by partisan politics and a complicit press. The Russian collusion hoax wasn't just a smear. It was a calculated strike on truth itself. And now that the lies are exposed, accountability must follow. The era of unchecked corruption ends here, and it ends now.